Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Simone here, and welcome to Vlogmas Day 1. Yes, you heard me right, I'm doing Vlogmas for the first time ever. I have had my YouTube channel for 3 years and my booktube channel will be 2 years in March, and I've decided I'm going to give Vlogmas a go. Now, I asked on Twitter if people wanted to see me do Vlogmas, and there was a high number of people said yes. And then I did just check with you all what you thought, because basically I don't like filming vlog videos, so I didn't want to do like a vlog a day. So what I thought I would do, and I've seen other people do, is a video a day. From the 1st to the 25th of December, so 25 videos in total, and you all seemed very excited and happy for that to be the case. And I did check with you all that you were happy for me to pre-film videos rather than film them at the time, and again, you all said go for it. So thank you very much for everybody that responded to my Twitter poll, and thank you to Lauren from Lauren in the Books for being amazing and encouraging me, because it really helped. And yeah, it's made me very excited. So I am pre-filming. Basically what I've decided to do is my Monday and Friday videos, as I would normally upload, will be filmed at the time like I normally film them. So they'll be filmed within the week that they go up. But all the other videos, I think there's 19 other videos or something like that, will all be filmed probably ahead of time, because if you didn't know, it takes me 12 hours basically to upload a video because my internet's really bad. So it will also explain, AJ, my boyfriend, and I live in a very small flat that is not really for 2 people, because we have, at the time of filming this, it's the end of September, and again there's a couple of videos I'm really pre-filming just because I want to get myself a head start, but I've made myself a bit of a filming schedule, so I know what I'm doing. But basically, if we move before Christmas, which I don't know if that will happen, but if it does, obviously you will see which ones have been pre-filmed, because there will be a different background. Obviously right now it's this background, but who knows? And if not, by the time Christmas comes around, I might still be here, so we will find out. Future me will know, whereas I do not know. So yes, so let us get started. So I have a range of different videos coming. There are tag videos, most of the videos I'm doing are not actually Christmas related, so there will be a couple of Christmas related videos that will come nearer to the time of Christmas. Most of them are going to be kind of top 10 videos. There's going to be tags, there's going to be discussion videos. I'm really excited. I've got all of the ideas written down, so I just needed to get filming. So today, without further ado, on Vlogmas Day 1, I'm very excited if you can't tell, I am filming the top 10 books that everyone should read, including myself. Now, a few months ago I did a video where I talked about the top 10 books everyone should read that I had read and I was recommending to everybody. But this time it's a little bit different, because I haven't read these books, but I keep hearing about them and I've been told that everybody should read them, and I also am included in that because I have not read them. So yes, so let's get started with the books. So the first book I would like to talk about is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And this is, Maya Angelou is a woman I've heard lots about, but I've never actually, I don't really know too much about her, which I know sounds awful. I probably should know so much more. But I believe this is a autobiography, or like part of an autobiography set that she's done. And this follows Maya Angelou when she was younger, and she was basically abandoned by her parents, and sort of shipped off to this small southern town to live with her grandmother, who was a very religious woman and incredibly self-sufficient. And it's about the feelings of abandonment and that Maya and her brother Bailey had to deal with, and also the prejudice of the local people, because I believe Maya Angelou is a black lady, and I believe the locals in the southern town were pretty much all white, and it was about that kind of, and it's also a class thing, and it's about, you know, prejudice in general. But I also know that Maya Angelou, I believe when she was about 8 years old, was sexually assaulted, and it's about that. And I believe this is her years later kind of looking back at everything that happened to her, and it's about her being allowed to, as the caged bird, be free and how she can express herself and the things that she can do. And I just think the whole idea of this book sounds amazing. I have heard so many people talk about this, and I really, really want to read a Maya Angelou book because, like I said, I've heard so many fantastic things. And yeah, so this is definitely the top one on this list. The second one is fairly self-explanatory, and that is The Complete Grimm's Fairy Tales, obviously by the Brothers Grimm. Now, if you didn't know, a lot of the kind of like general fairy tales that we hear, especially from Disney, are taken from Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. So Cinderella, Rapunzel, Snow White, I think Brer Rabbit? Why can't I say that when I've literally read that so many times as a kid? But basically, I've read a lot of the Disney versions, or or I've seen the adaptations, but I've never actually read the kind of where they came from. And I know that the Brothers Grimm tend to be a bit darker, the storylines. And I think that it sounds amazing. I know there's lots and lots of them, but I'd love to get like a complete bind up of them all and read them all, because I just think that fairy tales in general are really fun to read, but I feel like this is a bit of a twist on them, and it'd be really interesting to kind of get the source material and see kind of where all of the adaptations and that have come from. Then the third one I have is kind of a part of a series, but quite honestly, all these books stand by themselves. I've read the first, I want to say 3, and this is book 4, but I may have got that wrong, and it is Inferno by Dan Brown. Now this is the 4th book in the Robert Langdon series, the first book being Angels and Demons, which I've read, the second book being The Da Vinci Code, which I've also read, the third book being, what's the third one? Does it tell me in here? Yeah, The Lost Symbol, which I have also read, and then this one is Inferno. Now, I've seen the movie adaptation of this, but I've never read the book, and so I really wanted to include it because it is a book that, it is a general storyline that I enjoy. The Robert Langdon series, that he's, if you don't know, Robert Langdon is a Harvard symbologist, and he is kind of sent on these different like mysteries, essentially. He has to solve them. So I also would like to recommend all the others. So the first one, which was Angels and Demons, was about the Illuminati versus the Vatican City. I won't go into any more than that, but you should read it if you haven't read it. The second one was the Da Vinci Code, which was about like Da Vinci and the Last Supper and stuff like that. There was lots of things about that. The third one was The Lost Symbol, which I believe had something to do with the, was it to do with the pyramids? I'm rubbish at remembering. Honestly, you should just check them all out. Basically, Inferno, which is this one, is about Dante's Inferno. And Robert Langdon wakes up in a hospital bed in Italy with no like remembrance of how he got there, where he's going, what he's doing, and what's going on, basically. And he is sort of in a chase around the city where he is with Sienna Brooks, who is a young doctor, and he's trying to kind of get them through like hidden passageways and things to try and find out what's going on, and she's helping him out. So yeah, really, really interesting. I always think these are really, really like intellectual, so I don't think they're not quick reads, they're not easy reads. I do feel like these will take you a while to read. Like when I read Angels and Demons, it took me quite some time because, I mean, this long, and it's very, very like, each page is, there's all these things that I didn't know about, and I kept having to Google things, but I really enjoy them, and this one is one that I need to read as soon as I can. Book number 4 is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, and I've heard about this book on quite a few different channels, but I've never really thought about reading it because it's just not something, I've never heard anyone talk about what it's about. But I feel like it's one of those books that pretty much anyone who reads it really likes it. And Stargirl, also, Jerry Spinelli always reminds me of Ashley Spinelli from the Recess cartoon. If you know what I'm talking about, comment down below. But Stargirl basically is a story about non-conformity. It follows a boy named Leo Borlock who goes to a high school where essentially it's all about being popular, and if you're not popular then nobody really cares about you. But it's also a kind of don't stand out kind of popularity, rather than it being like somebody's at the top and everybody looks up to them. It's very much don't stand out, otherwise you're very odd and, you know, lots of bad things will happen. And then Leo meets Stargirl, who has joined the school after 15 years of being homeschooled, and he meets this girl who does not care about standing out. She has, is very unconforming. So the word non-conforming. She dresses differently to everybody else. She sort of plays a ukulele. She is just something that Leo has never experienced before, something that he's never been around and never kind of been part of a friendship with anybody. Now, Stargo initially is kind of a bit of a breath of fresh air. However, she soon gets kind of pushed down and cast out, I guess, for being different. And in this time, Leo has kind of fallen in love with her, and it's about the journey that they take, and it's about whether you should have to conform to be safe, and whether conforming is a bad thing or whether it means that you can't express yourself. And I'm just really interested to read this. I think that this type of book is something that's more important these days, because I feel like social media presence that we all have, like, I do feel like a lot of the time we're often trying to be perfect. Not all the time and not everybody, but I do think there is that element of like, oh, I can't post that because people will think this, or oh, I can't post that because people will think I'm weird. And I like the fact that this story kind of goes against that and talks about other things and other people that you can be, and you can be your own person. It doesn't matter what else is happening around you. Next up, I have another book from a series, and this one is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. Now, generally I'm talking about the series as a whole, which is the A Song of Ice and Fire series, which most people know as the Game of Thrones series. However, I've read the first book, A Game of Thrones, and so I wanted to include this because I feel like people think that the first book is kind of okay, you've read it, but unless you read more of the books, I don't feel like it's really seen as a you've read the series, I guess. And I know there are lots of books, and I know that he's not even finished releasing, and like there's the last book or the next book in the series has been out, or what has been kind of expected to come out for ages, and it still hasn't. So yeah, but I feel like I've still got quite a lot of catching up to do. So this is book 2. I mean, this book itself is 900 pages, and I feel like all of the books in the series are pretty similar to that, so that's a little bit overwhelming. If you don't know what A Game of Thrones, the first one, is about, it follows a world where there are lots of wars happening, and there are kings and queens and dragons and wonderful people. There are different houses. I really couldn't explain what it's about, because to be honest with you, trying to explain it all is very, very difficult. So I will just say, if you like kind of court, as in like, not court as in like judge and gavel, but as in sort of historic courts, I guess, then I feel like you'll like this. This is kind of one of those like things where there are different like there are so many different perspectives, and I love it, and all the characters in this are so interesting, and there's lots of different facets to all of them. So yeah, this is a book that I feel like everybody should read, at least the first one, but I'm gonna extend it to the second one because I haven't read that one yet. Next up is a book that I discovered when I was talking to Becky from Beck's Books, whose channel I will link below, but she and I buddy read the Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, and then we sort of thought about possibly reading some more Jon Krakauer together. And one of the ones I found in the charity shop, which was not one I'd really heard anything about before, but I picked it up because I thought it sounded interesting. And I feel like a lot of people like Jon Krakauer's writing in general, not just Into the Wild. I think that's the most famous one of his, but I think that a lot of his other ones have got quite a good praise as well. So the one I'm talking about is Under the Banner of Heaven, A Story of Violent Faith by Jon Krakauer. And I'll just really quickly read the bottom. It says, on July 24th, 1984, a woman and her infant daughter were murdered by 2 brothers who believed they were ordered to kill by God. The roots of their crime lie deep in the history of an American religion practiced by millions. So I believe this is Jon Krakauer talking about extremism in religion, and I believe this is about 2 Mormon men who believe in polygamy and kind of faith with no bounds, basically. And I think this is about the two men who, like I said, as it said on the front, who killed a woman and her daughter because they said that God had told them to do so. Now, I don't know anything else about the story behind this, but I always think it's really interesting to hear about other faiths, and as somebody who does not, I don't class myself as religious really. I believe that the message behind religion is interesting, and I think it's definitely an important message to pass on to future generations. I don't personally believe in the kind of figurehead of God, that's just a personal thing. I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on it though. But I think that reading about religion and how people take it in different ways is always kind of one of those things that's interesting, but also can be a little bit scary, I think, sometimes, because, you know, these things happen because people genuinely believe that they're right, and that is scary. And yeah, you can't really change that from in someone's mind if that's the way that they believe. So yeah, I'm really interested in this. I love John Krakauer's writing in Into the Wild, so I feel like hopefully I'll like this, and this is kind of like true crime as well, which is one of my favourite things ever. Then the next one is a Stephen King book, and as you all know, I have been reading Stephen King's books and trying to read a wider range of them and trying to get as many of them read as I can over the last couple of years, and I'm still miles away from it, even thinking about finishing that. But one of the ones that I feel like is kind of a classic that everybody seems to love is The Green Mile by Stephen King. Now, I mentioned the Green Mile film with Tom Hanks in my Classics Life movies video, so I will link that video below. But this book is set in Cold Mountain Penitentiary, which is a jail or a prison for inmates on death row. And then a new prisoner, John Coffey, is imprisoned there for murdering and raping 2 young girls. And it sort of follows and talks about, is he the devil in human form? Is he, you know, what is he? And it's about the kind of good and evil and that sort of thing. And this just sounds really interesting to me. I think the line between good and evil can often be splayed, and obviously, I mean, murdering and raping 2 young children is horrible, and it is absolutely evil, but it's also that thing of, is it an evil act or are they an evil person? And I feel like this book kind of talks about that a lot more. I've seen the film of this and I absolutely loved it, and there was kind of like a paranormal bit to it. I don't know how much of that is part of the books, but I'm guessing because it's Stephen King there will probably be some element of that in there, hence why it was in the film. But yeah, I really love this. I really want to read this book and then rewatch the film, but I feel like everybody needs to have a bit of Stephen King in their life, and I don't think this is a scary one, so I feel like if you're a bit nervous about reading a scary book, this is kind of a good Stephen King one for you. So the next one that I want to talk about is, I think it's pronounced IQ 84 by Haruki Murakami, and I might be pronounced completely wrong, I have no idea how it's pronounced. But basically this is a Japanese author who, I've heard so many things about this book, and I can't fully remember if everything I've heard is good or bad, because I think I'm mixing it up with A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, which I know is a completely different story, but I feel like the names and that just sound really similar, and in my head I've kind of merged them. But I know that IQ 84, assuming that's how it's pronounced, is one that is talked about a lot, so I feel like I should read it anyway and make up my own mind as to whether I think it's good or bad. As far as I know, this follows it's set in 1984 in Tokyo, and I don't know very much about it. I know that their main character, I think her name is Ayumami. I may again have completely butchered that, and I'm really sorry if I have. But it's about a girl who basically takes some advice from a taxi driver and then realises that she has been moved into a parallel existence where certain things are different. And it's also following a boy who is doing a ghostwriting project, and something happens, and I think maybe he gets sucked into this world as well, and it's about the two of them, like their narratives converge, and then I don't know much else about it. It sounds really fascinating to me. I do like the idea of like time travel or like existence travel, I guess. So potentially this is one I'll like, but again, I feel like I still need to read it anyway. However, I have just looked and it is 950 pages, so that's one I'm going to have to psych myself up for, I think, but it is one I would like to get to at some point because I have heard, like I say, people talking about it a lot and there's a lot of buzz around it. The next one is another non-fiction book, and that is, let me get the title right, We Wish to Inform You That We Will All Be Killed Tomorrow with Our Families, and that's by Philip Gurevich. And this sounds heartbreaking because this is set in Rwanda in April 1994, so this was set literally 2 years after I was born, which blows my mind that things like this were still happening at that point and are still happening now. Basically in Rwanda at that time, and to be honest with you, I'm very ignorant as to kind of how the situation is now, so again this is another reason why I really want to read this book. But as far as I know, there are 2 cultures or sets of like groups of people that live in Rwanda. There is the Hutus and the Tutsis. Now the Hutu, I believe, were a majority at this time in 1994, and the Tutsis were a minority. And as far as I know, the Rwandan government essentially ordered all of the Hutu people to murder the Tutsi people. I think that's right. So within 3 months, 800,000 Tutsi people were murdered, and that is horrendous, like actually horrendous. Essentially it was a genocide, and according to the kind of story, the bit I've read about it, I believe it was the second, like it was only second to the Jewish people being killed in the Holocaust, which, I mean, we all know how horrendous that is, and I feel like, why do I not know more about this? Because I know so much about the Holocaust, like so much, and I've been taught about it my whole life, and I don't know that much about this one, and it's 800,000 people. That is literally heartbreaking, and I don't know anything about it, and I actually kind of don't like myself for that. I feel like I need to inform myself more, and I'm desperate to read this book so that I can inform myself and find out what on earth happened, and try to sort of educate myself, really. So like I said, I really don't know much else about this, but I really want to read this book. I think if you've read it, or if you know anything else about this, do let me know what you know, and if there's any other parts of history or different things that you've heard about that you don't know very much about, because I feel like we don't get taught about lots of things, and I guess we can't be taught about everything, I suppose, but for me this is just such a big thing that I'm just shocked that I didn't know anything else about it. And the final book is actually a part of a YA, I believe it's a dystopian series, and that is Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. So this is an alternate society kind of story that talks about racism and prejudice. So you have noughts and crosses. Crosses are darker skinned people, and they are the ruling people in this situation. And then you have noughts, who are paler skinned white people, essentially, who are the underclass, and they are kind of second class citizens. So, and this basically turns on its head the prejudice that is in society, today as in general, because, you know, I feel like this is very interesting, the way that this plays on the dynamics of our society, because I feel like we have a society now where we are still very prejudiced, and we are still very minority majority driven, and I feel like it needs to change, but again, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and I feel like books like this are really important for that. So this basically follows two characters. One of them is a nought, one of them is a cross, and they've been friends since they were children, but that's all they can ever be. And I believe this is kind of like a Romeo and Juliet sort of story, where they fall in love, but can they be together? They can't be together in kind of society in general, because it's very much like frowned upon, I guess. But I feel like it's one of those stories that will still, it will mean something to me, I think, when I read this, and I'm very, very much looking forward. I've heard lots of things about this. Mallory Blackman is not an author that I've read before, but I feel like a lot of people have recommended her to me, so I've included her on this list. So they are my top 10 books that everybody should read, including myself. And hopefully I will read some of these books in the near future. Let me know if you liked my first Vlogmas video, guys. I'm really, really excited for the month ahead, and there are some great videos coming your way. Let me know what you're doing this Christmas, and let me know what books you think that everybody should read. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I will be uploading a video every day from the 1st to the 25th of December at 5 PM, so please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any future uploads, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye guys.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.